The September sun was beginning to set over the hills of San Francisco, painting the sky in orange hues that reflected off the windows of the financial district's skyscrapers. The cool Pacific breeze carried the salty scent of the sea, mixed with the distant sounds of cable cars climbing and descending the city's steep hills. It was a typical California afternoon, but for Salvatore, Sal Benedetto, nothing about this day would be typical. Sal walked through Union Square with measured steps, his gloved hands adjusting the Italian wool coat he wore impeccably. At 52, he commanded one of the most respected and feared families on the West Coast. His empire stretched from the Oakland ports to the underground casinos of Reno, passing through the elegant restaurants of Nob Hill. He was a man who had built his fortune through a calculated mixture of legitimate businesses and activities that preferred to remain in the shadows. Walking beside him was Marco, his 23-year-old son, recently graduated in business administration from UC Berkeley. Marco had returned just 2 weeks ago from a 6-month exchange in Italy, where he had studied the family's origins and perfected his Italian. He was an intelligent young man with penetrating dark eyes like his father's, but with a sensitivity that Sal sometimes considered both a blessing and a concern in the world they lived in. "Dad, are you sure we need to dine at this place?" Marco asked, observing the modest facade of Bella Vista, a small Italian restaurant in the heart of North Beach. "I thought we were going to Aqua or Garidanco to celebrate my return." Sal smiled, a rare expression that softened the hard lines of his face marked by years. "Marco, my son, sometimes the best treasures are hidden in the simplest places. This restaurant has a special history for our family. Your mother used to work here, long before we met." The mention of Isabella, his late wife, always brought a silent melancholy to Sal's eyes. She had died in a car accident when Marco was only 12, leaving a void that neither all the power and wealth in the world could fill. Isabella had been the only person capable of softening Sal's hardened heart, the only one who could make him genuinely laugh and dream of a different future for his son. They entered the restaurant, and Sal was immediately transported back in time. The exposed brick walls, decorated with black and white photographs of 1950s Italy, the tables covered with red and white checkered tablecloths, the aroma of garlic, basil, and tomato sauce that permeated the air. Everything remained exactly as he remembered from 25 years ago. "Signor Benedetto," a warm voice echoed from the back of the restaurant. Giuseppe Torino, the owner, a robust man in his early 60s with a graying mustache, approached with open arms. "What an honor to have you back at our humble establishment." Sal embraced the old friend with genuine affection. Giuseppe was one of the few people who knew both the man behind the reputation and the empire Sal had built. They had grown up together on the streets of North Beach, sons of Italian immigrants who dreamed of a better life in America. "Giuseppe, my old friend, this is my son Marco, whom I've spoken so much about." Marco extended his hand respectfully. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Torino. My father always speaks of you with great fondness." "Ah, what a well-mannered young man." Giuseppe smiled, firmly shaking Marco's hand. "You have your mother's eyes, God rest her soul. Isabella was an angel, a true angel." They were led to a reserved table in the most discreet corner of the restaurant, a position that offered a complete view of the environment while maintaining privacy for important conversations. It was a habit Sal had developed over the years. Always sit with your back to the wall, always have an escape route planned, always be prepared for the unexpected. The restaurant was moderately busy for a Thursday night. Young couples shared pasta dishes. Italian families conversed animatedly in regional dialects, and some tourists photographed their plates with the typical enthusiasm of those who had discovered a hidden treasure of the city. "Dad," Marco said, observing the environment with renewed interest, "tell me more about Mom working here. You never gave me many details about how you met." Sal sighed softly, his fingers playing with the wedding ring he still wore after all these years. "Your mother was a waitress here when I was 27. I used to come dine alone every Friday. Always requested the same table, always the same dish, also buco with risotto. She served me with a smile that lit up the entire restaurant. His eyes lost themselves in memories as he continued. Isabella was different from all the women I knew. She wasn't impressed by money or power. When she discovered who I was, what I did, she told me she would only be interested in me if I promised that our son would never follow the same path. Marco swallowed hard. It was the first time he heard this part of the story. "And you promised?" "I promised," Sal replied firmly. "And it's a promise I intend to keep no matter what happens." At that moment, a young waitress approached the table. She appeared to be about 25 years old, with wavy brown hair tied in an unpretentious bun, bright green eyes, and a genuine smile that immediately caught the attention of both men. "Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Sophia, and I'll be taking care of you tonight. Can I start by offering something to drink?" Sal was about to respond when his gaze was captured by something that made his heart stop for a moment. Around the waitress's delicate neck hung a necklace he would recognize anywhere in the world. It was a delicate white gold chain with a heart-shaped pendant adorned with small diamonds arranged in a unique floral pattern. In the center of the heart was a small emerald that captured the light from the table's candles. His hands began to tremble imperceptibly. That necklace, it was impossible. He himself had commissioned that exclusive piece for Isabella at a jewelry store in Milan during their honeymoon. The design had been created specifically for her, based on a drawing Isabella had made when they were dating. She always drew small floral hearts in the margins of her love letters. "Dad?" Marco noticed the sudden change in his father's expression. "Is everything all right?" Sal blinked several times, trying to compose himself. Yes, excuse me. 2 Chianti Classico, please," he managed to say to Sophia, his voice slightly hoarse. "Of course, I'll get them right away," Sophia replied cheerfully, noting the order before walking away. Marco observed his father with growing concern. Sal was pale. His hands still trembled slightly, and there was an expression of shock and confusion in his eyes that Marco had never seen before. "Dad, what happened? You went white as a ghost when the waitress arrived." Sal tried to find the right words. How to explain to his son that he had just seen a ghost from the past? How to tell him that the waitress was wearing a necklace that should have been buried with his mother over a decade ago? "Marco," he said slowly, his voice low and controlled, "do you remember the necklace your mother always wore? The one with the diamond heart and the emerald in the center?" "Of course I remember. It was her favorite necklace. You said she was buried with it because it was what she loved most, besides us two." Sal nodded gravely. "Exactly. And I was present at the funeral. I saw the coffin being closed. I saw it being lowered into the earth." Marco frowned, not understanding where his father was going. "So what, Dad?" Sal took a deep breath, his eyes fixed on the direction where Sophia had disappeared among the tables. "The waitress who just served us. She's wearing exactly the same necklace." The silence that followed was deafening. Marco felt a chill down his spine as he processed the implications of what his father had just said. His eyes slowly widened. "That's impossible, Dad. It must be just a coincidence. Maybe it's a similar necklace." "No, Marco," Sal interrupted, his voice loaded with certainty and an emotion he couldn't completely identify. "I know every detail of that piece. I myself drew the diamond pattern with the jeweler, the exact shape of the emerald, the way it reflects light. It's your mother's necklace. I'm absolutely certain." Marco felt his mind race in several directions. If his mother's necklace was really there, did that mean someone had violated the grave? That someone had stolen Isabella's most precious jewel? Or was there something even more sinister behind this situation? "Dad," Marco said, his voice low and urgent, "if this is true, we need to find out how she got this necklace. This could mean—" "I know exactly what it could mean," Sal replied, his eyes hardening with a cold determination that Marco recognized from his father's most serious business. "And if someone dared to desecrate your mother's grave, they're going to pay for it in a way they'll regret for the rest of their very short lives." Sophia returned with the wines, completely unaware of the emotional storm she had unleashed in her customers. She served the Chianti with graceful movements, the necklace swaying gently as she leaned to reach the glasses. "Have you decided what you'd like for dinner?" she asked with her warm smile. Sal forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Actually, dear, before we order, I'd like to ask a question, if you don't mind." "Of course. How can I help you? That necklace you're wearing is very beautiful. Is it a family piece?" Sophia instinctively touched the pendant, her eyes lighting up. "Oh, thank you. Actually, it's an interesting story. I found it at a thrift shop in Chinatown about 3 months ago. The lady who sold it said it belonged to a very special woman, someone who had been very loved. I fell in love with it immediately." Sal's blood froze. A thrift shop in Chinatown. That meant the necklace had been sold, not stolen directly from the grave. But how had it gotten there? And who was this lady who had sold it? "Do you remember the name of the store?" Marco asked, trying to keep his voice casual. "Yes, it's Treasures of the Past, on Grant Avenue. Mrs. Chen, the owner, always has the most incredible pieces. Why do you ask?" Sal and Marco exchanged a look loaded with meaning. They had a clue, a thread to pull in this web of mystery that had formed around Isabella's memory. "Just curiosity," Sal replied softly. "My late wife had a very similar necklace. It brought back good memories." Sophia smiled sympathetically. "How sweet. I'm sure she was a wonderful woman." "She was," Sal confirmed, his voice loaded with genuine emotion. "She was the most wonderful woman in the world." After Sophia took their orders and walked away again, father and son remained silent for several minutes, each lost in their own thoughts. The restaurant continued its normal life around them, but for Sal and Marco, the world had completely changed in a matter of minutes. "Dad," Marco finally broke the silence, "tomorrow morning we're going to Chinatown. We need to discover the truth about this necklace." Sal nodded, his eyes hard as stone. "Yes, we will. And if we discover that someone violated your mother's rest..." He left the sentence hanging, but the implicit threat was clear. Marco felt a shiver. He had grown up knowing his father was a dangerous man when provoked, but he had never seen this cold, controlled fury in his eyes. Whoever was behind the appearance of that necklace had awakened something in Salvatore Benedetto that had remained dormant since Isabella's death. While they dined in relative silence, both discreetly observed Sophia. She moved through the restaurant with natural grace, treating each customer with genuine attention and a smile that seemed to illuminate every table she visited. It was impossible not to notice how she resembled Isabella, not physically, but in her way of being, her natural kindness, her ability to make people feel special. "She reminds me of your mother," Sal murmured, more to himself than to Marco. "I was thinking the same thing," Marco admitted. "The way she smiles, how she treats people. It's almost as if Isabella had sent a sign," Sal completed, his voice loaded with an emotion he rarely allowed others to see. When they finished dinner, Sal left a generous tip and said goodbye to Giuseppe with promises to return soon. But his eyes remained fixed on Sophia until the last moment, as if he were trying to memorize every detail of her face, every movement of her hands, every reflection of light on the necklace that had belonged to the love of his life. Outside the restaurant, under the golden lights of North Beach, father and son walked toward the car in contemplative silence. The night breeze carried the aroma of coffee and pastries from nearby cafeterias, mixed with the salt of the ocean that always permeated San Francisco's air. "Dad," Marco said when they reached the black Bentley parked on the corner, "what if this isn't just about the necklace? What if there's something more?" Sal stopped with his hand on the door handle, considering his son's words. "What do you mean?" "I don't know. It's just a feeling. The way she appeared in our lives exactly when you decided to bring me to the place where you met Mom. The fact that she's wearing Mom's necklace. It seems destined." Sal looked at his son with a mixture of pride and concern. Marco was developing the instincts necessary to survive in their world, but he also maintained the sensitivity that Isabella had given him. "Tomorrow we'll discover the truth," Sal said finally, "whatever it may be." As they drove through San Francisco's winding streets toward the family mansion in Pacific Heights, neither could get the image of Sophia and the necklace that had awakened ghosts from the past out of their minds. What they didn't know was that this night would mark the beginning of a journey that would change their lives forever, revealing secrets that had been buried with Isabella and forcing them to confront truths that could destroy everything they believed in. In the darkness of the California night, with the city lights shining like terrestrial stars, Salvatore Benedetto made a silent promise to his wife's memory. He would discover the truth about that necklace, no matter where that truth led him or what price he had to pay for it. The first chapter of a story that would change everything had just begun. Friday morning dawned shrouded in San Francisco's typical fog, which stretched like a gray blanket over the bay and infiltrated the city streets. Sal had spent the night awake, walking through the corridors of his Pacific Heights mansion, repeatedly stopping before Isabella's portrait that dominated the living room. In the photograph, she smiled radiantly, wearing the same necklace that now haunted his thoughts. Marco came down for breakfast at 7 o'clock sharp, finding his father already dressed in a dark suit, sitting at the kitchen table with an untouched espresso cup in front of him. Sal's eyes were red from exhaustion, but his determination was palpable. "Didn't sleep at all, did you?" Marco asked, serving himself coffee from the Italian machine that Sal had imported directly from Naples. "How could I sleep?" Sal replied, his voice hoarse. "Every time I closed my eyes, I saw your mother's face. I saw that necklace. Marco, in 25 years in the business, I've learned that coincidences don't exist. Everything has a reason, a connection." Marco sat at the table, observing his father with concern. Sal seemed to have aged 10 years overnight. "Dad, maybe we should take some of the men with us today. If we're dealing with something serious—" "No," Sal interrupted firmly. "This is personal, Marco. Very personal. We go alone, discreetly. If we need help, Tommy and the others will be just a phone call away." At 8:30, they were driving through the city toward Chinatown. The Bentley navigated the steep streets with ease, passing the cable cars that climbed and descended the hills, the pedestrians hurrying to work, the normal life of a city awakening to another day. San Francisco's Chinatown was a world apart, an enclave where millennial Chinese traditions mixed with American modernity. The narrow streets teemed with activity. Street vendors offered exotic fruits. The aroma of dim sum escaped from restaurants, and shops crammed with merchandise displayed everything from traditional medicines to tourist souvenirs. Grant Avenue was the neighborhood's main artery, a colorful street decorated with red and gold lanterns that swayed gently in the morning breeze. Sal parked the car on a side street, and they walked until they found Treasures of the Past, a small shop squeezed between a noodle restaurant and a traditional Chinese pharmacy. The shop's window was filled with antique objects, delicate porcelains, vintage jewelry, yellowed photographs, pocket watches, and an infinity of items that told silent stories of past lives. A small sign on the door indicated that the shop opened at 9 o'clock. "We're early," Marco observed, checking his watch. "It's only 8:40. "Better this way," Sal replied. "Gives us time to observe, to think about our approach." They found a nearby cafe and sat at a table with a view of the shop. Sal ordered another espresso while Marco opted for green tea, trying to adapt to the local environment. While they waited, they observed the street movement, merchants opening their shops, Chinatown's daily life gaining rhythm. "Dad," Marco said, thoughtfully stirring his tea, "last night I was thinking, what if the necklace wasn't stolen from Mom's grave? What if she was never buried with it?" Sal looked at his son with surprise. "What do you mean?" "I myself saw. You saw the coffin being closed, but did you really see the necklace on her neck? Remember that the funeral was closed casket because of the accident injuries?" The question hit Sal like a punch to the stomach. He had assumed Isabella was wearing the necklace because it was her favorite piece, because she had asked to be buried with it. But Marco was right. The coffin had remained closed throughout the wake and funeral. "Are you suggesting that someone removed the necklace before the burial?" Sal asked, his voice low and dangerous. "I'm suggesting that maybe we should consider all possibilities before jumping to conclusions," Marco replied carefully. "Who had access to Mom's body before the funeral?" Sal closed his eyes. forcing himself to remember those terrible days after Isabella's death. The coroner, the funeral home staff, Dr. Harrison, who took care of all the arrangements. Is Dr. Harrison still alive? Yes, he retired a few years ago, but still lives in Marin County. Marco, are you suggesting that... I'm not suggesting anything yet, Dad. Just that we need more information before we act. At 9 o'clock sharp, an elderly woman of Chinese origin opened the door of Treasures of the Past. She was small and delicate, with graying hair pulled back in a simple bun and eyes that sparkled with sharp intelligence. Sal and Marco finished their coffees and crossed the street. The shop's interior was a fascinating labyrinth of antiques. Tall shelves extended to the ceiling, filled with objects from all eras and origins. The air smelled of incense and old wood, and soft light filtered through silk curtains created an almost mystical atmosphere. "Good morning," the woman greeted them in English with a slight accent. "I'm Mrs. Chen. Can I help you with something?" Sal approached the counter, where Mrs. Chen had positioned herself behind an old cash register. "Good morning, Mrs. Chen. My name is Sal Benedetto, and this is my son Marco. We're interested in a specific piece that we believe was sold here recently." Mrs. Chen studied them attentively, her experienced eyes evaluating the expensive suits, luxury watches, the confident posture of men accustomed to power. "What type of piece?" "A necklace," Marco intervened. "White gold, heart-shaped pendant with diamonds and a central emerald. It was sold about 3 months ago." Mrs. Chen's face lit up with recognition. "Ah, yes, a very special piece. Very beautiful, very unique. It was sold to a very sweet young woman." "Do you remember who brought the necklace to sell?" Sal asked, trying to keep his voice casual. Mrs. Chen hesitated, her commercial instincts alerting her to the intensity behind the apparently simple question. "May I ask why you're interested?" Sal took a deep breath, deciding on partial honesty. "Mrs. Chen, that necklace belonged to my late wife. She died 11 years ago, and I believed she had been buried with it. Discovering that it's in someone else's hands was a shock." Mrs. Chen's expression softened with understanding and sympathy. "Oh my God, what a terrible situation. Please sit down." She led them to 2 old chairs near the counter and served tea in small porcelain cups. The woman who brought the necklace, she was older, maybe 60 years old, graying hair, very well dressed. She said she was selling some pieces from a friend who had passed away. "Did she give any name?" Marco asked. "Yes, she introduced herself as Margaret Sullivan, I think. She said the friend had asked her to sell the jewelry and donate the money to charity." Sal felt his blood freeze. Margaret Sullivan, he knew that name. Margaret had been Isabella's best friend, her maid of honor at the wedding. They had met in college and maintained a close friendship until Isabella's death. But Margaret had moved east shortly after the funeral, and they had lost contact. "Do you have any record of the sale? An address, phone number?" Sal asked, his voice tense. Mrs. Chen nodded and went to a file behind the counter. After a few minutes searching, she returned with a yellowed paper card. "Here it is. Margaret Sullivan, address in Pacific Heights." Sal looked at the address and felt another shock. It was the house where Margaret lived when she was Isabella's friend, just 6 blocks from his own mansion. She had returned to San Francisco, and he didn't know. "Mrs. Chen," Marco said gently, "the young woman who bought the necklace. Do you remember anything else about her?" "Sophia," Mrs. Chen smiled. "She comes here regularly, always looking for special pieces. Works as a waitress, saves every penny to buy small treasures. When she saw the necklace, her eyes lit up. She said it was exactly what she was looking for." "Did she mention where she works?" Sal asked. "Yes, at an Italian restaurant in North Beach. Bella Vista, I think." Sal and Marco exchanged glances. The puzzle pieces were fitting together, but the image that emerged was more complex than they had imagined. "Mrs. Chen," Sal said, taking out his wallet, "I would like to buy the necklace back. I can offer a generous amount." Mrs. Chen shook her head sadly. "I'm sorry, but I can't do that. Sophia bought the necklace honestly, and it now belongs to her. If you want to recover it, you'll have to speak with her directly." Sal nodded, respecting the woman's integrity. "I understand. Thank you for your honesty and the information." They left the shop with more questions than answers. Outside, In the bustle of Grant Avenue, Marco turned to his father. "Margaret Sullivan," he said. "Do you think she—" "I don't know what to think," Sal admitted. "Margaret was like a sister to your mother. Why would she sell the necklace? And why didn't she contact me first?" "Maybe she didn't know you thought the necklace had been buried with Mom," Marco suggested. "Maybe Mom gave the necklace to her before the accident." Sal considered this possibility. Isabella was generous by nature, always giving gifts to people she loved. But the necklace was special. It was the symbol of their love. Could she have given it to Margaret? "Let's visit Margaret," Sal decided. Now, the address led them to an elegant Victorian house in Pacific Heights, painted in shades of blue and white, with a small porch decorated with flowers. It was a well-maintained property, but not ostentatious, the type of house a retired teacher could comfortably maintain. Sal rang the doorbell, his heart beating faster than he would like to admit. Footsteps approached the door, and it opened to reveal a woman he recognized immediately, despite the years that had passed. Margaret Sullivan had aged gracefully. Her hair, once brown, was now completely gray, but her blue eyes maintained the same vivacity that Sal remembered. She wore a simple wool sweater and dark pants, and there was an expression of genuine surprise on her face. "Sal?" she said, her voice loaded with shock and emotion. "Sal Benedetto? My God, you haven't changed at all!" "Margaret," Sal replied, forcing a smile. "It's good to see you again. This is my son Marco." "Marco!" Margaret exclaimed, her eyes filling with tears. "Look how you've grown. You were just a boy when your mother—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "May we come in?" Sal asked gently. "We need to talk about something important." Margaret led them to a cozy living room decorated with family photographs and books. Sal immediately noticed several photos of Isabella scattered around the room. Photos from her college days, from the wedding, from happy moments that he had forgotten Margaret had shared. "Can I offer coffee? Tea?" Margaret asked, clearly nervous. "No, thank you," Sal replied, sitting in an old armchair. "Margaret, I need to ask about something specific. Did you sell a necklace that belonged to Isabella? A white gold necklace with a diamond heart?" Margaret's face instantly paled. She sat heavily on the sofa, her hands trembling slightly. "How did you find out?" she asked in a low voice. "That doesn't matter now," Sal replied, his voice controlled but tense. "What matters is why you did it. I thought Isabella had been buried with that necklace." Margaret closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, they were full of tears. "Sal, there's something you need to know. Something Isabella made me promise I would never tell. But maybe it's time for the truth." Marco felt a chill run down his spine. "What kind of truth?" Margaret got up and went to an old desk in the corner of the room. She opened a drawer and took out a yellowed letter, sealed in an envelope that bore Sal's name written in Isabella's delicate handwriting. "Isabella gave me this 3 days before the accident," Margaret said, her hands trembling as she held the letter. "She said that if something happened to her, I should wait 10 years and then deliver this to you, along with the necklace." Sal felt the world spin around him. She knew? Isabella knew she was going to die? "Not exactly," Margaret replied quickly, "but she was worried. She had received some threats, people who wanted to get to you through her. She was afraid, Sal, very afraid." The words hit Sal like bullets. Threats. Isabella had received threats and hadn't told him. She had died afraid, and he didn't even know. "Why didn't you give me the letter a year ago when it had been 10 years?" Marco asked. Margaret sighed deeply. "Because I was a coward. Because I knew that what's in that letter would change everything. And I didn't have the courage to destroy the memories you had of her." Sal extended his hand firmly. "Give me the letter, Margaret." With trembling hands, Margaret handed over the envelope. Sal opened it carefully, as if it were a sacred relic. Inside were 2 sheets of paper covered with Isabella's familiar handwriting. He began to read aloud, his voice breaking with emotion. "My dear Sal, if you are reading this letter, it means my worst fears have come true. It means someone managed to reach me, and that I will no longer be there to protect you and Marco from the truths I try to hide." Sal stopped reading, his hands trembling violently. Marco approached and placed a hand on his father's shoulder. "Continue, Dad. We need to know." Sal took a deep breath and continued. There are things about me you never knew, secrets I kept to protect our family. My real name is not Isabella Romano, it's Isabella Torino, and I'm the daughter of Giuseppe Torino, the man you know as the owner of Bella Vista. But Giuseppe is not just a restaurateur, Sal. He is much more than that. The silence that followed was absolute. Sal looked at Marco, then at Margaret, trying to process what he had just read. Giuseppe Torino, he murmured. The man who served us last night is your father-in-law, Margaret completed softly. And Sophia, the waitress wearing Isabella's necklace, she is your granddaughter. She is Isabella's daughter. Sal's world completely collapsed. Marco felt his legs fail and let himself fall into a chair. Sophia wasn't just a random waitress wearing his mother's necklace. Sophia was his sister. This is impossible, Marco whispered. Mom never had another child. I would know. Margaret shook her head sadly. Isabella had Sophia when she was only 17, before meeting your father. She was forced to give the child up for adoption by Giuseppe, who didn't want the scandal to affect the family's reputation. Sophia was raised by a family in Sacramento, but when she turned 18, she sought out her biological parents. Sal continued reading the letter, his voice now just a whisper. Sophia came back into my life 2 years ago, Sal. She didn't know who you were, didn't know about Marco. I met her in secret, trying to find a way to tell you both the truth. But then the threats began. Someone discovered about Sophia and was using that against me. They said that if I told you about her, they would hurt her. They said they would hurt Marco too. Tears were now flowing freely down Sal's face. Isabella had carried this burden alone, had protected a daughter he didn't even know existed, had died keeping secrets that could have saved her life if he had known. Who? He asked, his voice hoarse with emotion and anger. Who was threatening her? Margaret hesitated. The letter doesn't say specifically, but Isabella mentioned they were people from your own circle, Sal. People close to you who wanted to use Sophia as leverage against you. Sal finished reading the letter in silence, absorbing every word, every revelation that changed everything he thought he knew about his life. Isabella had died protecting secrets, protecting people he loved from threats he didn't even know existed. Does Sophia know? Marco asked, his voice broken. Does she know who we are? No, Margaret replied. Isabella died before she could tell her. Sophia only knows that her biological mother died in a car accident. She doesn't know about you. Sal carefully folded the letter and put it in his jacket's inner pocket. When he looked up, his eyes had an iron determination that Margaret recognized from the old days. Margaret, he said, his voice controlled but loaded with emotion. Thank you for keeping these secrets for so long. I know it wasn't easy. What are you going to do now? She asked. Sal stood up, Marco doing the same. I'm going to do what I should have done 11 years ago. I'm going to protect my family, all of it. As they left Margaret's house, father and son walked in silence to the car. The weight of the revelations was overwhelming, but it also brought a strange sense of relief. Finally, the puzzle pieces were fitting together. Dad, Marco said when they got into the Bentley, Sophia is my sister. Yes, Sal confirmed, his voice loaded with emotion. And she has no idea who we are. What are we going to do? Sal started the engine and looked at Margaret's house one last time. First, we're going to find out who was threatening your mother. Then we're going to find a way to bring Sophia home, where she always should have been. As they drove back to Pacific Heights, both knew their lives had changed forever. Sophia was no longer just a waitress wearing Isabella's necklace. She was family. And in the Benedetto family, family was everything. The second chapter of their journey had revealed truths that changed everything. But it had also raised new, dangerous questions. Who had threatened Isabella? Why did they want to use Sophia against Sal? And most importantly, did these people still represent a threat? The answers would come. Sal was sure of that. And when they did, there would be a reckoning that was 11 years overdue. Sal's office on the 23rd floor of the Benedetto Tower building offered a panoramic view of San Francisco. From the window, he could see the bay stretching to Alcatraz, the bridges connecting the city to the rest of the world, and the rolling hills that gave the city its unique character. But that Saturday afternoon, Sal wasn't interested in the view. His attention was completely focused on the files spread across his mahogany desk. Marco was seated in a leather armchair on the other side of the desk, leafing through stacks of documents they had recovered from Sal's personal archives. They were business records, correspondence, security reports, everything from the years leading up to Isabella's death. If there were clues about who was threatening her, they would be there. "Dad," Marco said, looking up from a report dated 2012. "Do you remember any specific tension in business at that time? Any territorial dispute? Any deal that went wrong?" Sal massaged his temples, trying to organize memories from more than a decade ago. 2012 and 2013 were complicated years. We were expanding into Nevada. There was resistance from some local families. We were also negotiating port contracts in Oakland, which didn't please everyone. And internally, anyone from our own organization who might have had motives to use Mom against you? The question made Sal pause. Internal betrayal was always the most painful possibility, but also the most dangerous. There were some tensions. Tony Mastelli thought I was being too cautious with the expansion. Frank Russo wanted more participation in casino profits. But using Isabella, Sal shook his head. That would be crossing a line I thought no one would dare cross. Marco continued leafing through the documents when something caught his attention. "Dad, look at this." He extended a folder marked as Confidential, SB Only. "These are security reports about threats to the family. Look at the date of the last report." Sal took the folder and opened it. The last report was dated March 15, 2013, exactly 1 week before Isabella's accident. The report was from Danny Torino, Sal's security chief at the time, and contained alarming information. Anonymous threatening phone calls received at the residence. Sal read aloud. Calls made specifically when Mr. Benedetto was not at home. Caller always asked for Mrs. Benedetto and mentioned secrets that could destroy the family. Recommend immediate increase in personal security. Marco felt a chill down his spine. Danny Torino, is he related to Giuseppe? Cousin? Sal confirmed, his voice tense. Son of Giuseppe's older brother. He worked for me for 5 years before. Wait. Sal stopped, a terrible realization taking shape in his mind. Danny resigned 2 weeks after Isabella's funeral. Said he wanted to start a new life in another state. Where is he now? I don't know. We completely lost contact. Sal continued reading the report, his expression becoming darker with each line. Here it says he recommended additional security, but I don't remember receiving this report. Marco leaned forward. Do you think he never delivered the report to you, or someone intercepted it before it reached me? Sal closed the folder forcefully. Marco, if Danny was involved in the threats against your mother, then he knew about Sofia, Marco completed. He knew about the connection with Giuseppe and was using that. Sal stood up abruptly and walked to the window, his hands clenched in fists. Giuseppe, he murmured. Last night when we dined at Bella Vista, Giuseppe treated us like old friends. But if he's Isabella's father, if Sofia is my stepdaughter, why didn't he say anything? Marco asked. Why keep the secret? Maybe he doesn't know we discovered the truth. Or maybe Sal stopped, an even more disturbing possibility occurring to him. Or maybe he's protecting Sofia from something, or from someone. The phone on Sal's desk rang, interrupting his thoughts. He checked the caller ID. It was Tommy Ricci, his current security chief. Tommy, Sal answered. What do you have for me? Boss, you asked me to check on Danny Torino. I found some interesting things. Can I come up there? Come now. 15 minutes later, Tommy Ricci entered the office. He was a robust 40-year-old man with scars that told stories of a life on the streets before joining Sal's organization. He carried a folder and had a serious expression that Sal knew well. Boss, Tommy began, sitting in a chair in front of the desk. Danny Torino didn't disappear like we thought. He's in Las Vegas, working for the Castellano family. Sal felt his blood freeze. The Castellanos were long-time rivals, a family that had tried several times to expand their territory into California. How long? Since 2013, right after he left here. Tommy opened his folder. But here's the interesting part. In the last 2 years, he's been making regular trips back to San Francisco. Always stays at the same hotel in Chinatown, always for just 2 or 3 days. Marco exchanged a significant look with his father. He's watching someone, or protecting someone, Sal murmured. Tommy, did you manage to find out what he does during these visits? Still investigating, but I have a lead. One of my sources said he's been seen several times at Bella Vista. Always alone, always sitting at the same table in the back of the restaurant. Sal sat heavily in his chair. The puzzle pieces were fitting together, but the image that emerged was more complex than he had imagined. Danny wasn't just working for rivals. He was watching Sophia, possibly protecting her. There's more, Tommy continued. I got access to Danny's phone records from the months before Mrs. Benedetto's accident. He made several calls to a number in Las Vegas. The number was registered under Vincent Castellanos' name. Anthony Castellanos' son, Sal said, his voice loaded with cold anger. That ambitious bastard who always wanted a war with us. Marco leaned forward. Dad, do you think the Castellanos were behind the threats to Mom? It makes sense, Sal replied, his mind working quickly. They discovered about Sophia, about the connection with Giuseppe. They saw an opportunity to blackmail me or destabilize our organization. Tommy nodded. And when Mrs. Benedetto died in the accident, they lost their leverage. But Danny continued coming here, possibly to maintain surveillance on Sophia in case they needed her in the future. Sal stood up again, walking to a safe hidden behind a painting on the wall. He entered the combination and took out a special phone, a device he used only for extremely sensitive communications. What are you going to do, Dad? Marco asked. I'm going to call Anthony Castellano, Sal replied, his voice cold as ice. It's time to have a very frank conversation about what happened to Isabella. Sal dialed a number he knew by heart. The phone rang 3 times before being answered by a voice he recognized immediately. Benedetto, Anthony Castellanos' hoarse voice sounded from the other end. What a surprise! After all these years. Anthony, Sal replied, keeping his voice controlled. We need to talk. About 2013. About my wife. There was a long pause on the other end. I don't know what you're talking about, Sal. Don't insult me, Anthony. I know about Danny Torino's calls to your son. I know about the threats Isabella received. It's time to settle accounts. Another pause, longer this time. When Anthony spoke again, his voice had lost the pretense of ignorance. Sal, if you knew the whole truth about that time, maybe you'd understand that not everything is as it seems. Then tell me the truth, not over the phone. If you really want answers, come to Las Vegas, alone, tomorrow night. Sal considered the proposal. It was risky, possibly a trap, but it was also the only way to discover the complete truth about what had happened to Isabella. I'll go, he said finally. But Anthony, if this is a trap, if you try anything, it's not a trap, Sal. It's a chance to finally put ghosts to rest, for both of us. The call ended. Sal looked at Marco and Tommy, both clearly worried about what they had just heard. Dad, you can't go alone, Marco protested. It's too dangerous. Marco's right, boss, Tommy agreed. Let me take some men, stay as backup. Sal shook his head. No. If I show up with an army, Anthony will shut down completely. This may be our only chance to discover the truth. Then I'm going with you, Marco said firmly. Not as backup, but as your son. I have a right to know what happened to my mother. Sal studied his son's determined face. Marco had grown a lot in recent days, showing maturity and courage that filled him with pride. All right, we both go. But Tommy, I want you to maintain discreet surveillance on Sophia while we're away. If our suspicion is correct, she may be in danger. Of course, boss. I'll personally ensure she's safe. While Tommy left to organize security, Sal and Marco were alone in the office. The sun was setting over San Francisco, painting the sky with orange and pink tones that reflected in the building windows. Dad, Marco said softly, what if we discover that Mom's death wasn't an accident? Sal looked at his son, seeing in him the same iron determination he had inherited, but also the sensitivity that Isabella had given him. Then we'll do justice, Marco. No matter how much time has passed, No matter who's involved, your mother deserves justice. And Sofia? When are we going to tell her who we are? After we resolve this with the Castellanos, Sal replied. I can't bring Sofia into our family, knowing there may be people trying to use her against us. First, we eliminate the threat. Then we bring our daughter home. That night, Sal dined alone in his mansion, looking at Isabella's portrait in the living room. He had spent 11 years believing he knew the whole truth about his life, about his wife, about his family. Now he discovered he had lived in a carefully constructed illusion. Isabella, he whispered to the portrait, I promise I'll discover the truth. I promise I'll protect Sofia as I should have protected you. And I promise that whoever did this to you will pay. The portrait smiled back, silent and eternal, keeping secrets that only the dead know. Meanwhile, across the city, Sofia finished her shift at Bella Vista, unaware that her life was about to change forever. She unconsciously touched the necklace she wore, feeling the familiar weight of the pendant against her skin. She didn't know why, but lately she had felt as if someone was watching her, a strange sensation that her life was connected to something bigger than she could understand. Giuseppe watched her from the counter, his old eyes full of worry and secrets. He knew time was running out, that the truth he had kept for so long was about to come to light. And when that happened, nothing would be the same. The next morning, Sal and Marco would board for Las Vegas, seeking answers that could change everything. But they didn't know that others were also moving in the shadows, that forces that had remained dormant for 11 years were awakening, and that the truth about Isabella Benedetto was even more dangerous than any of them imagined. The third chapter of their journey had revealed dangerous connections and old betrayals, but the most shocking revelations were yet to come. In Las Vegas, under the neon lights and in the darkness of the casinos, secrets buried for more than a decade would finally come to light. And when that happened, the Benedetto family would discover that some truths are more dangerous than any lie. The flight to Las Vegas lasted only an hour and a half, but for Sal, it felt like an eternity. He was seated in first class of the commercial airplane, having deliberately chosen not to use his private jet to avoid drawing unnecessary attention. Marco was beside him, flipping through a magazine without really reading it, both lost in their own thoughts about what awaited them. Las Vegas stretched before them like an oasis of lights in the Nevada desert. Even during the day, the city pulsed with a unique energy, a mixture of hope and despair that attracted millions of visitors seeking fortune or escape. For Sal, Las Vegas had always been neutral territory, a place where different families could do business without the territorial tensions that dominated other cities. They took a taxi from McCarran Airport, instructing the driver to take them to the Bellagio. Sal had chosen to stay at the most visible hotel on the Strip, a declaration that he wasn't hiding, that he had come for serious business. Dad, Marco said, while watching the urban landscape pass by the window, do you have any idea what Anthony is going to tell us? I have theories, Sal replied, adjusting his shirt cuffs. But I learned long ago that reality is usually more complex than our theories. The Bellagio received them with its characteristic opulence. The lobby was a symphony of Italian marble and Murano crystals, with the famous conservatory garden displaying a seasonal flower arrangement that cost more than most people earned in a year. Sal registered under his own name, another sign that he wasn't trying to hide. At 7 in the evening, as arranged, they headed to Caesar's Palace, where Anthony Castellano had scheduled the meeting. The casino was in full activity, with the characteristic sound of slot machines mixed with dealers' voices and occasional shouts of victory or defeat from players. Anthony waited for them in a private restaurant on the casino's upper floor, away from curious eyes and attentive ears of the general public. At 68, Anthony Castellano was still an imposing figure. His completely white hair was combed back, and he wore an impeccable Italian suit that cost more than a luxury car. Sal, Anthony stood when they approached, extending his hand in a formal greeting. Marco, thank you for coming. They sat at a round table in the center of the empty restaurant. Anthony had ensured complete privacy, There were no waiters, no other customers, just the three men and the secrets that separated them. You said you had answers, Sal began without preamble. I'm listening. Anthony sighed deeply, seeming to age 10 years in an instant. Sal, before I begin, I need you to understand one thing. What happened to Isabella? It wasn't planned. It was never supposed to happen that way. So you admit you were involved, Marco said, his voice tense. Involved, yes. Responsible for her death, no. Anthony served himself a glass of water, his hands trembling slightly. Sal, do you remember 2012? The problems we were having with the port unions in Oakland? Sal nodded. You were trying to expand your operations to the West Coast. I blocked several of your attempts. Exactly. And I was getting desperate. My investors in Chicago were pressuring, threatening to cut funding if I couldn't establish a solid presence in California. Anthony paused, clearly struggling with the memories. That's when Danny Torino approached me. Danny came to you? Sal asked, surprised. He said he had information that could give me an advantage over you. Information about your family that you didn't know he possessed. Anthony looked directly at Sal. He told me about Sophia. Marco felt his stomach contract. And you decided to use an innocent child against my father? It wasn't supposed to be like that, Anthony protested. The original idea was simple. Use the information about Sophia to force some concessions in port business. Nothing more. Danny assured me he could pressure Isabella without you knowing, make her convince you to be more flexible in our negotiations. Sal felt anger growing in his chest like volcanic lava. So you terrorized my wife, made her live in fear. The phone calls were supposed to be just psychological intimidation, Anthony continued, his voice loaded with remorse. Danny said he knew Isabella, that he knew how to pressure her the right way. But then? Then what? Marco demanded. Anthony closed his eyes. Then Isabella did something none of us expected. Instead of pressuring you to make concessions, she began investigating who was behind the threats. She hired a private detective, started asking questions, connecting dots. Sal felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. Isabella was investigating you. More than that, she discovered the connection between Danny and me. She discovered our expansion plans. And then, Anthony paused, clearly reluctant to continue. Continue, Sal ordered, his voice dangerously low. She called me directly, 3 days before the accident. Said she knew everything, that she had evidence that could destroy me. But instead of threatening me, she made a proposal. Marco leaned forward. What kind of proposal? She said she would hand over all the evidence she had collected, that she would keep silent about everything if I guaranteed that Sophia would be safe. Forever. Anthony looked at Sal with eyes full of pain. She was willing to sacrifice herself to protect the daughter you didn't even know existed. The silence that followed was deafening. Sal tried to process what he had just heard. Isabella hadn't been just a passive victim. She had been a warrior, fighting to protect her family the only way she knew how. The accident, Sal said finally, his voice hoarse. Tell me about the accident. Anthony took a deep breath. Isabella had scheduled a meeting with me to deliver the evidence. It was supposed to be at a neutral location, a parking lot in Daly City. She was driving there when what? Marco pressed. When Danny intercepted her. Anthony looked at his own hands. He had decided on his own that Isabella knew too much, that she was too dangerous for all of us. He forced her car off the road. The revelation hit Sal like lightning. Isabella hadn't died in an accident. She had been murdered. Murdered by a man Sal had trusted, a man who should have protected her. Are you telling me, Sal said, his voice controlled but loaded with deadly fury, that Danny Torino killed my wife? Sal, you have to understand, I didn't know he was going to do that. When I learned about the accident, when I realized what had happened, I confronted him. There was a terrible fight. I expelled him from the organization, said that if he ever returned to Las Vegas, I would kill him myself. But you didn't kill him, Marco observed coldly. You let him live, because he had information that could destroy all of us, Anthony admitted. He knew all the details of our operations, had evidence that could put us all in prison, and he made it clear that if anything happened to him, everything would be delivered to the FBI. Sal stood up abruptly, walking to the window that offered a view of the illuminated strip. His mind was working quickly, processing information, planning his next move. "Where is Danny now?" he asked without turning around. "I don't know exactly. After I expelled him, he disappeared. I heard rumors that he was working as a freelancer, offering his services to whoever paid more. But he continued returning to San Francisco," Marco said. "Tommy discovered he made regular trips." Anthony nodded, probably watching Sophia. Even after everything, he knew she was a valuable piece in the game. If he ever needed leverage against you, Sal, Sophia would be his ace in the hole. Sal turned, his eyes shining with a cold fury that made Anthony instinctively recoil. "Anthony, I'm going to ask a question, and I want you to think very carefully before answering. Do you know where I can find Danny Torino?" "Sal, if you're thinking of taking justice into your own hands, answer the question." Anthony hesitated, clearly weighing his options. "There are rumors that he's working for a family in Phoenix, the Morettis. But Sal, you have to understand, if you go after him now, after all these years, this could trigger a war that none of us want." "Let me worry about the consequences," Sal replied. "You owe me this, Anthony. You owe me the chance to do justice for my wife's death." Anthony nodded slowly. "I'll make some calls, see what I can find out about Danny's exact location. But Sal, when you find him, remember that he's no longer the man you knew. 11 years in the shadows have turned him into something very dangerous." "Not more dangerous than me," Sal replied, with a coldness that made the room's air seem to freeze. Marco stood up and joined his father at the window. "Dad, what about Sophia? If Danny is still out there, she could be in danger." "That's why we're returning to San Francisco tonight," Sal said. "Tommy is watching her, but it's not enough. We need to bring her under our protection, tell her who we are." "And Giuseppe?" Marco asked. "Does he know about Danny?" Anthony intervened. "Giuseppe always knew there was danger surrounding Sophia. That's why he kept her close. Why she works at the restaurant, where he can watch her. But he doesn't know about Danny's involvement in Isabella's death." Sal turned to Anthony one last time. "You have 24 hours to get me information about Danny. If I don't hear from you by tomorrow night, I'll assume you're protecting him." "Sal, I understand your anger, but—" "No," Sal interrupted. "You don't understand. You didn't lose the woman you loved. You didn't spend 11 years believing it was an accident when it was actually murder. You didn't discover you have a daughter you never knew, because your wife died protecting her." Anthony nodded gravely. "You're right. I don't understand, but I'll help you find Danny. It's the least I can do." 2 hours later, Sal and Marco were back at the airport, boarding the last flight to San Francisco. During the flight, they remained silent, each lost in their own thoughts about the night's revelations. "Dad," Marco said when the plane began descending over San Francisco Bay, "how are we going to tell Sophia that we're her family? How do we explain that her mother was murdered by someone who was supposed to protect her?" Sal looked out the window at the approaching city lights. "Carefully, Marco. Very carefully. Sophia lost a mother she barely knew. We can't just appear in her life and turn everything upside down. But she has a right to know the truth. Yes, she does. And she will know. But first, we're going to make sure she's safe. Then we're going to find Danny Torino and make him pay for what he did." When the plane touched down in San Francisco, Sal immediately called Tommy. "How's our girl?" "Safe, boss. She finished her shift at the restaurant an hour ago. Went straight home. I have 2 men watching her building." "Good. Tomorrow morning, I want you to arrange a meeting. Me, you, Giuseppe, and Sophia. It's time to put all the cards on the table." "Understood, boss." "What about Danny Torino?" Sal looked at Marco, who nodded with determination. "Leave Danny to me. When I'm done with him, he'll wish he had never heard the name Isabella Benedetto." As they drove back to Pacific Heights in the darkness of the California night, father and son knew they were about to enter the most dangerous phase of their journey. They had discovered the truth about Isabella's death, but that truth brought with it the responsibility to protect Sophia and the need to do justice. Danny Torino had lived 11 years with Isabella's blood on his hands, but his days of freedom were numbered. Sal Benedetto had made a promise to his wife's memory, and it was a promise he intended to keep, no matter the price. The fourth chapter of their journey had revealed the most painful truth of all, that Isabella had died not by chance, but by heroism, trying to protect a daughter Sal didn't even know existed. Now it was up to him to honor that sacrifice, protect Sophia, and ensure that justice was done. But first, he needed to find a way to tell an innocent young woman that her life was about to change forever, and that the man she was about to meet was not just a powerful stranger, but the stepfather she never knew she had. Sunday dawned with clear skies over San Francisco, but in Salvatore Benedetto's heart, the clouds of revelation still weighed like lead. He had spent the night awake in his office, looking at photographs of Isabella and trying to find the right words for what he was about to do. How do you tell a young woman that her entire life was built on secrets? How do you reveal that love can be both protection and danger? At 10 in the morning, Tommy arrived at the mansion with news. "Boss, Giuseppe agreed to the meeting. He'll bring Sophia to the restaurant at 2 in the afternoon. He said it's time to settle accounts with the past." Those were his exact words. Sal nodded, adjusting his tie in front of the entrance hall mirror. He had chosen a simple navy blue suit without ostentation. He wanted to appear approachable, paternal, not intimidating. "What about security? I have men positioned within a 3-block radius of Bella Vista. If Danny Torino or any of his associates show up, we'll know immediately." Marco came downstairs, also dressed conservatively. Father and son had decided that first impressions would be crucial. Sophia needed to see them as family, not as threatening figures from the underworld. "Dad," Marco said, checking his watch, "have you thought about how we're going to start the conversation? We can't just arrive and say, 'Hi, we're your lost family.'" "We'll let Giuseppe lead initially," Sal replied. "He knows Sophia better than we do. He'll know how to prepare the ground." They left the mansion to order North Beach, but this time Sal chose to drive his discreet Mercedes instead of the flashy Bentley. Every detail mattered. They couldn't appear too powerful, too dangerous, too distant from Sophia's reality. Bella Vista was closed to the public on Sunday, but Giuseppe waited for them at the door. The old Italian seemed to have aged years since Thursday. His eyes were red, as if he had been crying, and his hands trembled slightly when he greeted Sal. "Salvatore," Giuseppe said, his voice loaded with emotion. "Thank you for coming. Thank you for finally giving me the chance to make things right." "Giuseppe," Sal replied, placing a hand on the older man's shoulder. "We're family. We always were, even without knowing." They entered the empty restaurant. The tables were covered with clean tablecloths, the chairs perfectly organized, but there was an atmosphere of expectation in the air, as if the building itself knew something important was about to happen. Sophia was seated at a table in the back of the restaurant, the same table where Sal and Marco had dined on Thursday. She wore a simple summer dress in light blue, and the necklace, Isabella's necklace, shone softly against her skin. When she saw them enter, she smiled with the same kindness she had shown as a waitress, but there was confusion in her eyes. "Sophia," Giuseppe said, approaching the table, "these are the Benedetto gentlemen I mentioned. They would like to talk with you about your mother." Sophia stood up politely, extending her hand. "Mr. Benedetto, Marco, it's a pleasure to see you again. But I don't understand. Did you know my biological mother?" Sal took Sophia's delicate hand in his, and for a moment he was transported back in time. It was like touching Isabella again. The same softness, the same warmth. "Sophia, please sit down. What we have to tell you is complex." They settled around the table. Giuseppe served coffee and water, his hands still trembling slightly. The silence stretched for a few moments, no one knowing exactly how to begin. "Sophia," Giuseppe finally said, his voice hoarse with emotion. "There are things about your family that I never told you, things your mother made me promise to keep secret." Sophia frowned, looking between the three men. "What kind of things? You're scaring me." Sal took a deep breath. "Sophia, your biological mother was named Isabella Romano, who later became Isabella Benedetto." Sophia's face slowly paled. "Benedetto? You mean—" "I was married to your mother," Sal said softly. "And Marco is your half-brother." The silence that followed was absolute. Sophia looked at each of the men, trying to process what she had just heard. Her hands went instinctively to the necklace, touching the pendant as if it were a talisman. "This is impossible," she whispered. "My biological mother died when I was 12. You're saying she was... that you are... your family," Marco completed gently. "Sophia, I know it's a lot to process, but it's true." Sophia stood up abruptly, walking to the restaurant window. She stood there for several minutes, looking at the busy North Beach street, trying to organize her thoughts. "The necklace," she said finally, without turning around. "You recognized the necklace on Thursday, didn't you?" "Yes," Sal confirmed. "I had that piece made especially for Isabella. It was her favorite necklace." Sophia turned slowly. "And you never knew about me? All these years?" "No," Sal replied, his voice loaded with pain. "Isabella kept that secret to protect us. To protect you." Giuseppe stood up and approached Sophia. "My dear, your mother made me promise I would never tell Sal about your existence. She said it was too dangerous, that there were people who could use you to hurt them." "What kind of people?" Sophia asked, though she seemed to fear the answer. Sal exchanged a look with Marco. They had decided to be honest, but gradually. "Sophia, my work, my business, sometimes makes enemies. Isabella was trying to protect you from that world." Sophia returned to the table but remained standing. "And now? Why are you telling me this now?" "Because we discovered you may be in danger," Marco said. "There's a man named Danny Torino who might try to use you against us." The name made Giuseppe visibly stiffen. "Danny?" he murmured. "That bastard." Sophia looked at her grandfather with surprise. "You know this man?" "I know him," Giuseppe replied, his voice loaded with old anger. "He's my nephew, and he's the reason your mother died." The revelation hit Sophia like lightning. She let herself fall into the chair, her legs failing. "My mother didn't die in an accident." Sal leaned forward, taking Sophia's hands in his. "Sophia, your mother was a heroine. She died protecting you, protecting our family, but it wasn't an accident." Tears began to flow down Sophia's face. "Someone killed her? Someone killed my mother?" "Danny Torino," Giuseppe said, his voice trembling with rage. "My own blood. He killed her because she discovered his plans to use you against Sal." Sophia covered her face with her hands, sobbing. Marco stood up and knelt beside her chair, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. "Sophia," he said softly, "I know it's a lot to process, but you're not alone anymore. You have a family now. We're going to protect you." Sophia looked up, her green eyes shining with tears. "A family? But I don't even know you. How can I have a family I don't know?" Sal felt his heart break. "Sophia, I know we're strangers to you, but the blood that runs in your veins is the same that runs in mine, in Marco's. Isabella was the love of my life, and you are part of her. That makes you part of us." Giuseppe sat beside Sophia, taking her free hand. "My dear, I should have told the truth long ago, but your mother made me promise, and I kept that promise even after she died. Maybe it was a mistake." "It wasn't a mistake, Giuseppe," Sal said firmly. "You were protecting her as Isabella wanted, but now circumstances have changed. Now she needs our protection." Sophia wiped her tears and looked at each of the men. "If you are my family, if I really belong to you, why do I feel like my whole life has been a lie?" "Because in part it was," Marco admitted. "But the lies were told out of love, Sophia. Everything Isabella did was to protect you." Sophia touched the necklace again. "This necklace, was it really hers?" "It was the wedding gift I gave her," Sal confirmed. "She wore it every day. It was like it was part of her." "And now it's with me," Sophia murmured, as if she was trying to connect me to you. Giuseppe smiled through his own tears. "Isabella was always smart. Even in death, she found a way to reunite her family." Sophia remained silent for several minutes, processing everything she had heard. Finally, she looked directly at Sal. "If you're my stepfather, if Marco is my brother, what does this mean for me? What do you expect from me?" Sal chose his words carefully. "We don't expect anything, Sophia. You're an adult woman, independent with your own life. But we want to offer something you never had, a family that loves you and will protect you. And what about the danger you mentioned? This Danny Torino? We'll deal with him, Marco said, his voice hardening. You don't need to worry about that. Sophia studied the faces of the two men, seeing in them a determination that was both comforting and frightening. You're going to kill him, aren't you? The direct question caught everyone by surprise. Sal hesitated, not wanting to lie, but also not wanting to scare Sophia. Sophia, he said finally, there are things in my world that are complicated, but I promise you'll never be exposed to that part of my life. But it's part of who you are, Sophia observed. If I'm going to be part of this family, I can't just ignore who you really are. Marco looked at his father, impressed with Sophia's perception. She's right, Dad. If we're going to do this, we have to be honest. Sal nodded slowly. Sophia, yes, we'll probably kill Danny Torino. He murdered your mother, and in our family that doesn't go unpunished. But that doesn't mean you have to approve or participate. It just means you need to understand that sometimes justice comes in ways the law cannot provide. Sophia absorbed this in silence. And if I say I don't want to be part of a family that solves problems with violence, then we'll respect your decision, Sal replied without hesitation. But we'll still protect you. You're Isabella's daughter, that will never change. Sophia stood up again, walking to a photograph on the wall, an old photo of Giuseppe with a beautiful woman who was clearly Isabella in her early years working at the restaurant. She was beautiful, Sophia said softly. Do I look like her? Very much, Giuseppe replied, joining her in front of the photograph. You have her eyes, her smile, but you have something more. You have her strength. Sophia turned to face the three men. If I accept being part of this family, what happens to my life? My job, my apartment, my independence? Nothing changes unless you want it to change, Sal assured. You can continue working here if you want, or we can help you find other opportunities. You can keep your apartment or move to something bigger and safer. The choice is yours. And what about protection? Will I have bodyguards following me everywhere? Temporarily, yes, Marco admitted, until we resolve the situation with Danny. After that, you can choose the level of security you're comfortable with. Sophia returned to the table and sat down. I need time to think about all this. It's too much to process at once. Of course, Sal said. Take all the time you need. But Sophia, while you decide, please accept our protection. We don't want to lose you like we lost Isabella. Sophia looked at the necklace one last time, then at each of the men. All right, I accept the protection. And I'd like to know more about my mother, about Isabella, about how you met, what she was like. Sal's face lit up with the first genuine smile in days. I would love to tell you about her. Isabella she was pure light, Sophia, and I see that same light in you. Giuseppe stood up and went to the bar, returning with a bottle of Italian red wine. Then let's toast, he said, serving 4 glasses. To Isabella, who brought us together even in death, and to Sophia, who has finally come home. They raised their glasses, and for a moment the restaurant was filled with a sense of peace that none of them had felt in years. Sophia was home finally, even though she still didn't fully know what that meant. But outside, in the shadows of North Beach, eyes watched the restaurant. Danny Torino had returned to San Francisco, and he knew exactly what was happening inside Bella Vista. The family reunion he had tried to prevent 11 years ago was finally happening, and he didn't intend to let it continue. The 5th and final chapter of their journey had reunited a family separated by secrets and tragedy. Sophia had discovered her true identity. Sal had found the daughter he never knew he had, and Marco had gained the sister he had always wanted. But the happiness of the reunion would soon be tested. Danny Torino was moving in the shadows, planning one last strike that could destroy everything they had just built. The Benedetto family was complete, but their greatest test was yet to come, and when it arrived, they would discover if their newfound love would be strong enough to survive the storms that were approaching.